Hello, welcome to another installment of Red Scott Movies. Now, I know this month's been a bit weird for the channel. There's not been any of our regular content, no retrospectives or Xenoverse. Just to let you know, everything is being worked on. I have 2 retrospectives in the works, which will be out sometime, as well as the next Xenoverse episode, which will be the next main video up. But this month, for the last couple of minutes, has just been a bit strange, pop culture-wise. We've got Game of Thrones finishing, we've had Avengers Endgame, and yesterday I just saw Godzilla King of the Monsters. But obviously, since that isn't my usual content here, I don't want to start flooding the channel with Red Scott movie stuff, which is why we're doing a bit of a double feature today. I only saw Avengers Endgame for the first time earlier this week. I was very late getting to Endgame by about 3 or 4 weeks because of work, but I eventually saw it just last week, and yeah, so 2 movies in about 6 or 7 days. I figure, rather than 2 reviews, one after the other, smash them together. So, we'll start off with Avengers Endgame for the very, very, very late and ultimately pointless impressions of that movie, which everyone's already seen by now. Let's go! So yeah, I'm not gonna spend ages talking about this, and both because everyone's already seen it by now, who at least the people who care to see it, and because, honestly, I don't have too much to say about it. Not in a bad way, but I think ultimately this movie pretty much did everything it had to, pretty much did everything I expected, and didn't disappoint. That's kind of it. It's a weird one. Like, I loved Infinity War. I absolutely still love that movie. It's probably my favourite of the MCU films. And when it came to Endgame, I wasn't really expecting it to be as good. Like, I was hoping it to be as good, hoping it to be better, but really, I was kind of saying to myself, I'll be happy for an 8 out of 10 compared to the 9 out of 10 or even 10 out of 10 that Infinity War is, because it's such a monumentous task to wrap up, essentially, was it 21 or 22 movies at this point of the MCU? 10 years worth of films, 10 years worth of character arcs and storylines, and it was a big job. And I don't know, considering how things have been lately, when it comes to wrapping up long-running series, Game of Thrones comes to mind, it just makes this so satisfying that it was fine. It was good. I'm not making this sound very... no, I liked it. I really liked the movie. It's just, in a lot of ways, it didn't quite do things as well as Infinity War, in my personal opinion. Let's just go into detail. So the main plot, when it comes to time travel and everything, I mean, that's asking for trouble. Anytime you include time travel plots into your fiction. And I'm not going to nitpick, I'm not going to go into the details of why things might not work or might not make sense, or, you know, why didn't you just travel back to the 70s to get more Pym particles to begin with, rather than having this, you know, artificial tension of we've only got one shot to do this. I mean, I just said I wasn't going to nitpick, but whatever. One thing I really liked was the 5-year time jump that happens in this movie. So I don't know if I heard a rumour or a leak or something come out about this. I mean, I was pretty certain there was time travel in this movie even before I saw the first trailer. I wasn't trying to find any spoilers on this movie whatsoever. I didn't even watch the second trailer at all. But I think I kind of just took time travel as a given, so I was not surprised at all when that happened. But the 5-year time jump, in fact, actually, the whole Iron Man having a family, having a daughter thing was sort of something that I predicted a long time ago. Like I said, I don't know if I heard it in a rumour or a leak somewhere or not. I just wasn't surprised with that at all. And kind of really thought, and it seemed to be going this way, this idea of going back and changing the past to prevent Thanos, the snap from happening. I kind of thought it would be a bit more of a dilemma with Tony of, okay, if I go back and change the past, I can save half the universe from getting erased, but also the last 5 years of my life, and, you know, having this daughter and having this nice life in a cabin, that's all going to be undone. Big dilemma. Turns out they can get around that by just, no, everything still happens, it's just everyone gets brought back. Which, okay, whatever. Other than that, the 5-year time jump more or less happened as I kind of expected. But the one thing I'm really glad that this movie did was that it actually didn't do the just go back to Infinity War and prevent it from happening. Because it gives weight to what happened in Infinity War. The fact that the first, third of this movie is just seeing the consequences of that last film. Seeing this decimated Earth, counseling groups. When Ant-Man comes back from the quantum realm van and he kind of sees firsthand everything that's going on, it's a good way of showing us, the audience, from our perspective, because this is somebody who obviously, this is all new to him just as it is to us. But the point is, all of that still happened, even by the resolution of this movie. Even by the time they save everybody, these last 5 years of horrors are still remembered. Because the worst thing that they could have done, in my opinion, would be the Doctor Who solution. Season 3 of the New Who, the Martha run. There's a 2-episode arc at the end where the Master takes over the world, and it's a year-long time jump of, like, horrible dystopian society. But then by the end, they turn back clock, and the only people who remember are the Doctor and, like, 3 other dudes in the room. And, you know, the world carries on as normal. That is the worst possible thing they could have done. I mean, without going completely off the fucking wall and doing something like, I don't know, Ant-Man going up his butt. Jokes, that would have been amazing. But the fact that this is still remembered and it's going to still be relevant in future movies really makes me interested. As much as in general I'm not interested in the MCU anymore going forward. But it's going to make me interested for the new Spider-Man movie at least. Especially since he, and by the looks of it, all of the main cast of that movie were dusted, given that they're all still the same age. Very convenient. But in general, it's the right thing to do, because nobody was surprised at the fact that they were going to bring everyone back with the stones or any other means. Like, the moment everyone was decimated at the end of Infinity War, yes, it's still a great scene, and it still has that emotional impact, but the impact of that movie is still there. I think if I was to go back and watch Infinity War now, I still think that last scene has an impact. Just the way this movie handled it. Like, I'm just giving props to this movie for not fucking it up so badly. I don't know, my bar is so low these days with things just dropping the ball at the end. It helps that this is a 3-hour-long movie, and it takes till the final act of the final act before everybody does come back. In a fucking amazing battle scene, by the way. A little bit over the top. In some ways, I still think Infinity War's battle scenes were better. They were a little bit more focused, but this had the giant spectacle of it. It was pretty cool. I suppose the only other thing I really want to talk about, without just saying the same things everyone else is Thanos himself. So, Infinity War Thanos, amazing character. I mean, that pretty much was his origin movie. And in that sense, it actually worked really well, because it set him up for this movie. Sort of, but didn't, and that's kind of my point. So I'm still not very sure how I feel about the main antagonist of this movie is essentially not the same antagonist. It's not the same Thanos from Infinity War. And that feels a little bit weird to me. Yes, he's still the same physical person, but his experiences are different. His 5 years of development from Warlord Thanos of 2014, you know, Guardians of the Galaxy sitting on a floating throne, end of the Avengers, turn and smile at camera, that Thanos is the one we're dealing with, really, in this movie. Whereas the sort of eco-terrorist, spiritually enlightened warrior type in Infinity War, who just really is convinced himself that he's the hero, essentially. That Thanos is dead. He is killed at the start of this movie. Which also means that his previous fights with Iron Man and Thor and everyone is nullified. He still knows who the Avengers are. He still is aware of Tony Stark, but I don't know, something's lost there. That's all I'm saying. And also, just Thanos in general in this movie isn't quite as interesting. He actually has very little screen time when I think about it, and the screen time he does have, he's a bit more generic comic book villain. You know what I mean? Like I said, there's just something about this Thanos just he fell kind of a little bit flat for me. It was a little bit, I don't know how to put it, just not as interesting as the previous movie. And loses something by not being the same character. But on the whole, I absolutely do love this movie. For me, though, it's kind of a Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi situation here. Like, Empire Strikes Back is an absolutely top-tier film, at least within Star Wars and movies in general, and I feel the same way about Infinity War. That's the Empire Strikes Back of the MCU as far as I'm concerned, and it's a fantastic movie out with the MCU itself. This, as a follow-up, does its job perfectly fine. I mean, I realise this analogy might not work if you're someone who actually hates the Return of the Jedi, but for me, Return of the Jedi is, like, almost my favourite Star Wars movie. It's second, anyway. Third, absolutely, at least. And yes, it does some silly things and some stupid things, and there's certain plot points in Empire Strikes Back which aren't quite wrapped up great. Or a little bit too conveniently, you know, Han Solo. But it also does some of the best shit and the most emotionally charged shit. And it's pretty much the exact same here. Like, Tony Stark's death scene, even more so than that, actually. The one that really got me was Peter Parker reuniting with Tony after he's brought back, and the funeral scene at the end. There's a kid in that funeral scene, actually. The camera pans through the whole crowd, and there's one guy there, and it did take me a couple minutes to kind of rack my brain, like, who the hell could that be? And I realised who it was, and I double-checked on the internet when I got home, and it was right. It's the kid from Iron Man 3, which I thought, just, what a callback. But the whole, tons of callbacks in that scene, especially the proof that Tony Stark has a heart arc reactor on the wreath. That was, oh boy. Anyway, what was my point? This is why I'm really bad with off-the-cuff, unscripted reviews. My mind just goes like, this point, it's all over the place, and I'm trying to trace it back to where the hell was my last branch. Ah yes, emotionalism in this film. Yeah, great stuff. But yes, individually this movie has some of the best scenes and moments and sequences, probably in the MCU in general. I mean, as overblown as that final battle was, it was satisfying. It was a complete crowd-pleasing moment. The sequence where all the female heroes from across the series team up to, like, get the gauntlet from A to B, and he's trying to get to the van. Yes, that was stupid and whatever, but it was cool. No idea why they all showed up there. You know, it wasn't planned. It just happened, and it happened because, you know, someone said, hey, we need to get all the female characters together. But whatever, I'm not going to complain. It was it still made me smile. In fact, speaking of female characters, Captain Marvel in this movie. I haven't seen the Captain Marvel movie. Honestly, I'm not really that interested. And I gotta say, I was a little bit concerned. I mean, optimistically, I figured they weren't going to fuck it up. But I was a little bit concerned of how they were going to include a character that overpowered into the final act here. Like, the absolute last thing I wanted was her to be the one to take out Thanos, because that just completely diffuses, like, Tony's character arc and Cap's character arc and everyone else's character arcs. But honestly, she was handled pretty well, I have to say. The fact that she takes out the entire dreadnought, essentially, single-handedly, I think giving her a moment like that to showcase her power is perfect, and the one-on-one with her and Thanos was pretty cool, but I still think it was right that he, pushed against the wall, is able to take that kind of, what did he do? He took the Power Stone into himself physically, not the gauntlet, and used that to take her out. Yeah, it required him to go beyond his physical limits, essentially, to actually take her out, but he was able to, you know, tactically outthink her. Makes sense to me. Just talking of some of the other characters, Ant-Man as well. I was never a huge Ant-Man fan. I only actually saw the first movie, 2 months ago, and I watched Ant-Man and the Wasp the day before this. Thanks, Lily, by the way, for getting me a copy of that. But since seeing those movies, I actually really quite like the character, and again, I think he was handled really well in this. It just reminds me of during the big battle sequence where there's hundreds of characters. It's just great seeing some of the stuff going on in the background. Like on one shot, I just remember seeing giant Ant-Man carrying one of those space whales, and like you could see him sort of putting it halfway through a ring portal, one of Doctor Strange's ring portals. And like, you don't actually see what happens, but I just like to imagine he's just putting it half through, to close the portal to sever it in half, and he's just doing that to all the space whales. I mean, it makes sense. Honestly, those sling rings, that's the fucking one. Those sling ring portals are probably the most overpowered thing in the setting, aside from Captain Marvel. Like, again, Infinity War, why didn't he just make one of those portals around Thanos' arm to cut it off? I don't know. Anyway. Yeah, I don't really want to say anything else, if I'm honest, because like I said, this movie's been out a long time, and it's been fucking analysed and talked to death, and I don't even want to try and do that. I just wanted to give a couple of quick thoughts while I'm here. And that's it. On the whole, great movie. Satisfied, ultimately. That's really all I can say. A great movie. It's not a perfect movie by any means. It certainly has some problems, a couple of which I mentioned. But like, I came out the movie theater just happy, just completely satisfied with what I got, and like not in any way, like I've been nitpicking here, but these are not bugging me. These are not like weighing on me in any way. Like, God, I wish they did this or that or that. I'm just like, it's good. I'm happy. Now, I'm sure I said this in my Infinity War review as well, that the future of Marvel, I'm not hugely interested in. I'm not going to say, like, I will not see another Marvel movie ever, because, whatever, you're just lying to yourself. There's going to be a movie probably somewhere along the line that piques your interest. Guardians of the Galaxy 3, especially if Fat Thor is involved in that. Didn't even talk about Fat Thor, but loved him. And as I said earlier, the new Spider-Man movie, probably see that sometime. I don't know if I'll bother in theaters, but whatever. I don't know what they're going to do next. And honestly don't hugely care. Like I said, I'll probably drop in now and again on the occasional film, but if they're going to build up another 10 years for another giant storyline or something, I'm not going to bother, honestly. I'm saying that now. Opinion could change, don't hold me to it, but that's currently how I'm feeling. But, fuck it. It's been a great series, it's been a great ride, and they did it really well. Like, even the worst of the Marvel movies are still watchable. Maybe. I haven't actually seen Thor: The Dark World since I first saw it. Yeah, I'm just going to start repeating myself again and again about how satisfied I am with this, so I might as well just cut it off there. Thanks for watching, and if you want to stick around for the next review, Godzilla! So, Godzilla King of the Monsters is the sequel to the 2014 Godzilla reboot, and the third movie in the Legendary Pictures Monsterverse cinematic universe. A lot of cinematic universes these days. And most of them are shit. Actually, I quite like these movies, to be honest. I haven't actually seen Skull Island, so that's not true. Okay, so I like the 2014 Godzilla reboot quite a lot. I know it's not great. The human characters were very heavily criticized, and yes, Ken Watanabe's Dr. Serizawa. I remembered his name. Woo! I'm not going to remember most characters' names here, by the way. I'm just going to be talking like the girl, the mum scientist. That's going to be most of this review. I'm just saying now. The human characters in that, basically minus Bryan Cranston, who, spoilers for the 2014 movie, dies at the end of the first act, were all pretty shit. And the big criticism of that movie from most people was that the movie focused too much on the humans and not enough on the Godzilla and monster fights. And yes, rewatching that movie a few weeks ago, it's kind of true. It's a bit of a slow burn, it's a bit of a grind to get to the action, but the end of the movie is really good. And so we're carrying on the same plotline here into King of the Monsters, where we have now Godzilla going up against a much larger roster of monsters. And because this movie just came out yesterday in the UK, I will give my non-spoiler opinion first. Unlike Endgame, I actually did catch this quite early, because I've been pretty hyped for this movie. I've been kind of looking forward to it a lot. I'm not like super knowledgeable of old school Godzilla, but I quite like it, and I'm familiar with most of the monsters. As soon as I found out that King Ghidorah was in this, that immediately piqued my interest, because he's always been probably one of my favourites, pretty much second to Godzilla himself. And seeing a Western rendition of that monster really had me excited. They've been kind of hyping up this movie for 2 years almost now. It's been known for a long time, and there has been quite a bit of marketing for it. Not really sure how well it's going to do though. We'll say the initial critic reception has not been very good, and I'm going to talk about that quite a bit. We're seeing here, 40% on Rotten Tomatoes, but then a pretty high audience score. It's strange. So anyway, non-spoilers to start off with. I really like this movie. It's not great. It didn't. I have quite a few issues with it, but on the whole, really happy with it. It was a lot of fun. Probably better than the 2014 movie. Best Western Godzilla I think they've ever made. Not that there's much choice there. We got the 1999, 1998. What fucking year was that? Roland Emmerich Godzilla movie. Let's not talk about that. I'm not gonna pretend like I've never fucking seen it. I mean, see, I'm not gonna pretend that I'm above trash. I've seen this movie many times. I've had this DVD since I was like 12 or something. I've seen that movie a lot. I honestly, I used to like that Godzilla movie as a younger kid. But nowadays, knowing more about the original Godzilla and what he's really supposed to be, yeah, we'll fucking forget about that. But really what had me interested in this movie and excited for this movie was that older school type kaijus and the interactions and even the relationships of those monsters, because they all have a lot of personality. Ideally, they should. And the actual fights between them and the alliances between them and the team-ups. I mean, old Godzilla movies, they're basically just wrestling with monsters. It's like that. It's like Dragon Ball Z, but with giant monsters. The fucking Godzilla fights Rodan because they don't like each other, but then Ghidorah comes along and he's an even bigger threat. So Mothra's like, oh no guys, we gotta team up to fight him, and they're like, no, because we don't like each other. But then Ghidorah kicks Godzilla's ass because he's too weak to fight him on his own. So then they all have to come together and work as a team with the power of friendship. And it's but that's kind of the thing I was actually looking for here, and largely that's what I got. But that's when I come to some criticisms. So we'll start getting into spoilers from here. But on the whole, if you're interested in this movie, if you liked the 2014 Godzilla movie, you'll probably like this one. I guess that's my recommendation. But if you're not a Godzilla fan, this isn't going to sway you. Not really. And if you really didn't like the human element of the previous movie, and you just want to see monster fights, you might like parts of this movie, but on the whole, you might like it a bit less. But, as I was saying earlier, 90% audience score. It seems like a lot of people really like this movie. A lot of old Godzilla fans really, from what I've been reading and hearing, really do enjoy this movie. And it's a bit weird that there's such a vast disparity between the critics and the audience. Okay, we're going to start getting into spoilers now, and I'm going to open it up with this fucking point. One of the major criticisms I saw of this from like the critics who saw pre-screenings was that this was just nothing but 2 hours of monsters fighting and no human interactions whatsoever. Bullshit! Absolute bullshit! If anything, my biggest problem with this movie, aside from the characters not being very interesting when they are around, is that there wasn't enough monster fighting. As weird as that sounds in a movie with 4 major monsters and allegedly like 13 others. I think there's something like there's 17 in total. You barely see any other monsters. There maybe like have little flashes of them here and there, but they're not really involved. It's the 4 main ones fighting. Even with that, not enough. I wanted more. Just 20% more monster fighting, and I think I would have felt satisfied. They had me leaving the cinema wanting more, so I guess that worked. But yeah, I just wanted a bit more, especially towards the end when all 4 of the main lead monsters are on screen. They do fight together in the same scene for a couple minutes, but that's it. I wanted more of that in the movie. But when it comes to the human characters, there's a little bit too much. I just feel like I say, trim down the human part 20%, up the monster part 20%. So the critics, I don't get that criticism. Now, the criticism I do get is that the human characters aren't great. Honestly, my biggest problem with this movie is the main human leads spending the vast majority of the runtime just flying around in this really stupid, like, giant B-1 or B-2 bomber type thing, but it's like 10 times the size of regular. It's basically like a flying fortress. Not like the flying fortress, but like a literal flying fortress. It's like the helicarrier from the MCU. And it's stupid, for a start. This thing carries like VTOL Ospreys, like 4 of them in a internal hangar bay. So this thing is giant. And for the most part, these movies, minus the monster aspect, have been pretty grounded. And seeing this on screen was a little bit too comic booky for me. Like I said, it was very helicarrier from Avengers. But the main lead, they're just in this thing, flying around the world, like teleporting wherever they need to be, wherever the action is. And it's the constant running commentary of what the monsters are doing that I just didn't need. I don't need to break away from Godzilla tearing off Ghidorah's head just for one of the characters to go, Godzilla's tearing off Ghidorah's head. I don't need it. That's my biggest problem with this movie. The human characters themselves, some of them are alright, some of them they're interesting enough and likable enough on screen. The kid character, I don't know the actress's name or the character's name. I know she's in Stranger Things. She's one of the main cast in that. She was alright in this movie. I didn't mind the storyline with them. The mom scientist who is working with the bad guy, Tywin Lannister, to release all of the kaiju into the world to try and basically wipe out humanity. The virus of humanity that's destroying the environment, that old storyline. So the mom having this sort of moral crisis thing going on where she thinks basically humanity needs to die and this is the right thing to do, otherwise the whole world's fucked. Sure, whatever. We'll have that be the basic catalyst for getting monsters to come out and fight. But the problem is the movie then spends way too much time focusing on the interfamilial relationships of these people. And it keeps cutting away from the monsters to do so. I know I sound kinda I just want to see monsters fight. I'm just being honest. Like, I just gotta be honest. I just want to see monsters get the crap out of each other. That's why I'm here. I don't know what the critics are saying. I don't know what they want. I like some introspective look on the human condition in Godzilla King of the Monsters. It's not gonna happen. And honestly, if they're not gonna do the human stuff, great. I'd rather they just didn't bother. You know, they really just cut back on it, because it's not great. Some of it's interesting. Dr. Serizawa's, he's probably the best character in this series, and the one who most closely understands Godzilla and his role in the balance of the world. And he has this really nice kind of familial connection to it, going back in his family. And he dies in this movie. Boo. There's one particular character who was really getting on my nerves, who's kind of going around on the tour bus ship, and I didn't like any of his dialogue. Honestly, most of the human dialogue in this just was really quite bad. Very exposition-y, they use the line "as you know" in this movie, so you lose points just for that. Any movie that uses "as you know" exposition immediately loses points. But like, this character, so we're seeing Godzilla in the final battle fighting Ghidorah, and he's overcharged with nuclear energy, and we could get that. We could actually get that from watching the scene itself, if I'm being perfectly honest. You could have that entire scene with no human dialogue, and you would understand what's happening. You would understand Godzilla is overheating. You understand that he has a mutualistic relationship with Mothra, who is best girl, and they fucking kill in this movie. But it's fine, she'll be back. I know how, like, even credit scene, you see some hint of there being another Mothra egg somewhere, so there's always this kind of reincarnation thing going on with her. You know, we could understand all of this happening without the need of cutting back to a character in the ship to go, Godzilla's gonna explode in 12 minutes. Fight. Godzilla's gonna explode in 6 minutes. Fight. Oh, Godzilla and Mothra, they're teaming up. We don't need humans to keep telling us. Just show us. Like, I don't know. I'm not, like I said, I'm not super familiar with the old films. I'm not sure how much this is like the older movies, but honestly, I just don't feel like it's needed. Like, have a little faith in your audiences to understand what's going on. Anyway, then my camera cuts out because even though I've deleted all memory from it, memory's full. Fuck knows. What the hell was I talking about? Human characters suck. That was pretty much it. It really just bugged me. In the final battle, I just want to see Godzilla and Ghidorah go at it, but it keeps cutting back to this one asshole in the ship who just keeps giving us updates on how far Godzilla is from going thermonuclear. I care, but I care to see it. I don't care to hear about it. It's coming. It's going to happen, guys. Oh, here's the ticking clock. Just fuck off. I wanted to see the fight. God, it annoyed me. That one character, particularly, was just the font of most of the cringy dialogue in the movie. He was supposed to be comic relief, I guess. Wasn't really funny. There was one line in the movie that actually did get a bit of a chuckle out of most of the audience. It was when the one scientist, kind of looking at the history of the monsters and like legends and myths and that, finds out the name of Monster Zero, was originally called, and finds out it's called Ghidorah. And somebody on the side goes, "Did you just say gonorrhea?" that made me laugh. But a lot of dialogue was just kind of very cringy, very first draft script. And the one that really bugged me, which was in the trailers, was... I'm just going to show it. Oh my god. Zilla. Shut up. Anyway, I'm going to not talk about the human characters anymore because they're kind of annoying me now. When it comes to the actual action and the fights themselves, though, they were really cool. Ghidorah, seeing him in action in this CG way, as much as I like the monster, he does look really fucking goofy in the older movies. That's not a bash in the older movies. I do appreciate them, but Ghidorah flying with the very stiff wings like this, it looks kind of silly. And, you know, there's always that worry of how are they going to transfer that over into CG. And it came out really well. He's a scary fucking monster. And they actually use his physical being quite good, choreography-wise. You know, using his necks and his tails to, like an anaconda, wrap up Godzilla, lift him into the sky, drop him like a meteor. All this sort of stuff. It's really cool. There's a bit of a Three Stooges thing going on with his three heads as well early on. The middle head is obviously the dominant one, fucking bonking the left one on the head because he's too busy thinking about food, that sort of thing. You know, I was glad to see this. I'm glad to see a little bit of personality shine through on these monsters, because if you look at the sort of the lore and the older movies, there is personality there with them. You know, Mothra being the good one, essentially, the most D&D chart lawful good monster you have, who's really there to protect the world and protect humans. Godzilla being quite neutral, is there to protect the world and the natural order, but when it comes to human life, kinda not really his concern. And then you have Ghidorah down at the bottom somewhere. Rodan, chaotic neutral. Rodan's a bit of a dickhead, I'll be honest. In this movie, he's a bit of an arsehole, but whatever. I actually wasn't really expecting this, but I quite liked the reveal of Ghidorah being not of Earth. He is an invasive species, essentially described as, and I really appreciate that, because I wasn't sure what they were going to do with him. The alien origin story of him could be a little bit goofy, I think, so I kind of wondered, are they not going to bother with that? But they do. They pay a bit of lip service to it, but no more than that, which is fine. He's extraterrestrial, and he's coming to essentially terraform the planet to his own liking. And the fact that he travels around and brings this giant storm with him, and it's really cool. And I love the yellow lightning, the gravity beams, and all that shit. One of the biggest oh crap moments with me watching this was when he gets a supercharge from a power station and lights up the whole sky. And really, when it comes to the monsters themselves, I don't have any real complaints. The fights were really good. I just wanted to see more. Like I said, Mothra does show up towards the end, has a little bit of a fight with Rodan, helps with Ghidorah a bit, and that's it. And then dies, which I am sad about. But I would like to see more. I would like to see more team up. I want to see someone grab Ghidorah by the arms and then Godzilla skid on his tail and drop kick him. I want to see more of this. I don't, but that would be hilarious. I don't know. I'm really happy with the movie, if I'm honest, and I want to see more. I know they are planning a Godzilla vs King Kong film, and I guess depending on how this does and depending how that does, they might do more. And I kind of hope they do more. There is a post-credit scene here, which I didn't bother staying for, but I looked up afterwards, where Charles Dance's character, who does kind of disappear in the movie, there's never really a resolution with them as the sort of human antagonists. They disappear to a bunker at the end of the first act, and then they're there till the end of the movie. Pretty much completely, they never get captured or anything. But Charles Dance's character finds one of the severed heads of Ghidorah and buys it. Don't know whether he's going to get the DNA for that, which was mentioned earlier in the movie. Clone Ghidorah, I don't know, kind of silly. Or do something else with it, I don't know. There is again the 13 or 14 other monsters in this movie, of which there's only snippets seen. There's a big mammoth. There's a creepy fucking looking spider thing, which, honest nightmare fuel. Like Cthulhuian tentacle-faced giant spider thing. Ugh. And another Yuto, the monster from the first movie, which was destroyed. Not sure why there's one here, but whatever. I kind of figure it's just, hey, we have this 3D model already that we own, and we need some monsters. Let's just reuse this one. I imagine it might have just been a bit of that. There's certainly a lot of footage recycled from the previous movie. The Mutos like destroying Las Vegas and stuff. They have that like on TV screens in the background of like Titan attacks. But I'd like to see more. There's a lot of other monsters in the Godzilla roster they haven't used. Angarius, I think, the big like ankylosaurid thing, which I thought was in this film. It looked almost like him emerging from the mountain underground. Would have been cool if there was some hint. It would have been cool if there was some hint of some of the other Toho monsters, is what I'm getting at here. It looked like a lot of made up by Legendary Pictures, just brand new monsters outside of the four main ones. I would have liked to seen some hint of some of the classics scattered here and there. Yeah, so I'm pretty happy. I'll see this movie again. I'll probably get it on Blu-ray or something. I really should go back and watch Kong Skull Island as well. This, as far as cinematic universes go, this is not a bad one. It's certainly no MCU in terms of success, nor honestly in terms of quality of movies. These movies aren't really meeting that Infinity War level. As much as I want this to be the Infinity War of the monster movies, it's not. The human characters really take it down. But the fact they have tried to make the cinematic universe of these monsters and done as much success as they have, it's commendable. You know, we've had things like the Dark Universe with The Mummy, which, fuck that. And even the DC EU, not great. DCEU? What the fuck is the DC one called? I don't know. Trash. You know, I like these movies, and I like this series, and I'd like to see more. I'm definitely interested in the Godzilla vs. Kong. That is confirmed. Sure production, it has been on that for a few months at least. And yeah, I hope it goes somewhere. And yeah, I want more movies like this. More movies like this with more monsters. And less people. Just give me monsters. That's it. Alright, I'm going to start repeating myself again, just like I did with Endgame. But yeah, I'm happy with this movie. I don't really... It's not a 40%. It's... If I'm going to give it a rating, I'd probably put it at least a 60. Maybe 70. But again, a little bit of that's just like... It tickled that giant reptiles beating the crap out of each other itch that I want to see. It's not as good as Endgame, but it's certainly... It's a good movie. If you like this sort of thing, it's a good movie. You won't be disappointed. I hope not, anyway. So yeah, that's all I really have to say. Godzilla, King of the Monsters. You motherfuckers killed Mothra. I'm not even joking. I got a little bit teary-eyed in that moment. Like, not a single tear was shed for a single human life that day, but... You bastards killed Mothra. Speaking of human life loss, when Rodan comes out the volcano and they try to lure him away, good job luring him over the population center, killing thousands. Like, I thought your plan was to lure him away from the city, but you lured him right over it. You're kind of morons, aren't you?